Now look, Galactus is a being that really needs no introduction, because even if you fully don't know the character, his name of just being the Devourer of Worlds should speak plenty and enough to just how powerful he is. Yet in the same fashion, what if Johnny Blaze, the Ghost Rider, very powerful in his own right, finally had enough and decided to step up to Galactus to confront him about his consuming and seemingly evil ways. And while the premise is essentially just like a death battle between the two, in the end it's really fascinating what it means for the future of the Marvel Universe and its lore in general. So what we do here is we move over and pick up in the late 70s of Marvel's New York City. And the main focus right now isn't Galactus or even Ghost Rider, but the Thing confronting a man. Because as the Thing goes on to confront this guy saying, "You killed 5 people." And the part that really makes Ben here mad is the fact that he didn't do it for power or for glory. He did it just to take the guy's top job as the head of human resources at an accounting firm. So sure, the charges stacked against this guy is pretty wild. And you want to know his answer? Well, he did it simply because the office was really nice. And anyway, who is the Thing here to even judge him? But that's the thing. Well, not the Thing, but Ghost Rider's job is to judge, as he finally arrives to correct the evil that this man has done. Proclaiming himself as judge, jury, and executioner, telling this man here, this murderer, that it's time to let his guilt from his crimes condemn him. So he does just that, letting him face the fire and vengeance of the Penance Stare. Now, if you're not too familiar with the Penance Stare, one of Ghost Rider's most powerful abilities, it essentially inflicts the pain you have caused others or made others suffer back onto yourself. And if you've done a lot of it, and if it's too much, the guilt, shame, and sinfulness of it will literally burn your soul out and kill you. Now, it is inconsistent, and over the years it has waned in what it can do in its limits, but in a nutshell, that's the case, and that's exactly what we see here. The guilt and evilness from what the guy did, murdering 5 people, it literally burns him to his very soul, as he is charred in just a pile of ashes on the ground. The Thing instantly being mad at Johnny here, because, you know, that was his person to bring into justice. Now, he can't do that with him just being a pile of ash on the road. Though, of course, Ben Grimm isn't going to lose any sleep about this, you know, it's one less murderer on the streets of New York. Though while Johnny is here, he does need a ride because he has a date with his girl later, so he needs to get his best suit, asking Johnny Blaze here, the Ghost Rider, for a ride on his bike. And with Johnny not even having anything to do for the next hour, he agrees and they set off. And while the Thing is here getting fitted for extra large suit due to how just ginormous he is and broad, he really takes a second to think about what happened with the Penance Stare and to the man. Going over to talk to Johnny Blaze, who is just here to accompany him as being a good friend and buddy, the Thing goes on to fully ask and say, "What I wanted to talk to you about is the Penance Stare. Does it truly work on everybody who's killed people? And is there any weaknesses or any ways to undo it? Could somebody use, for say, like science to stop it from working?" And the answer to that question Johnny brings up is no, because it's supernatural. It can only really be stopped or counteracted by anything equally as supernatural, such as the time when the Punisher was able to just tank the Penance Stare because he had a feather of an angel on him, which kind of just shielded him from the effects because it's equally as supernatural in nature. Though here in his next target, they're not going to have that same luck, as when the Thing hears this confirmation, his mind only goes to one person who out of every villain they have faced would deserve the Penance Stare more than anybody else: Galactus. With him even going on to say, the Big G has spent centuries destroying whole entire worlds to feed his hunger. How many people has he killed in the process? Trillions? I don't even think Reed Richards himself could figure out that number. And every time we have gotten into a fight with him, he has walked away in one piece. And maybe that's due to the case of us fighting science with science. So maybe you have got what he can't fight. Maybe finally he can be brought to justice. Which is a very, very cool concept, you know, the Ghost Rider going out to seek out Galactus to finally make him pay for the sins, almost, of his actions, destroying countless worlds, societies, people, his death toll in the multi-trillions of lives lost. And soon we're going to see how that exactly plays out. Though, speaking of Fantastic Four villains who have done evil across the years, I'm actually very curious to see how the Penance Stare will work on someone like Dr. Doom. Now, surely he has some sort of magical defenses in his arsenal that would maybe shield him from the Penance Stare, but if he didn't, I wonder if a move like that would be able to instant kill him. Due to all of the evil and wrongdoings he has committed over the years, you know, he would be a prime suspect for this move to work on. Regardless, though, the logistics of the Ghost Rider fighting Galactus come up, as in Galactus is somewhere off in space. Who knows where, in the entire universe, doing whatever. Space is a very big place, so how would the Earthbound Ghost Rider even get to him? And to Ben's response is, "I'm sure you'll just figure it out." In which days later we see that Johnny has actually made up his mind and now is trying to go after Galactus, because sure, he could take out some criminals on Earth who have done evil and wrong, yeah, but imagine being able to take out a person who has done terror and evil across the universe for centuries and thousands and millions of years upon time. it is definitely an endeavor worthy of the spirit of vengeance. And so to get to the other side of the universe in space where Galactus is, he just hitches a ride on a random spaceship taking off, but instead infecting it with his supernatural abilities, boosting its power and capabilities, taking flight. Now with him on his little cosmic journey, we move over to another place across the cosmos. Now, even the comic goes on to say that wherever this is pretty irrelevant, though the only thing to note is the name of the planet here will shortly be long forgotten and only really brought up in historical interest. Because as one of the last survivors of the doomed world goes on to say, the last of the silver cities has fallen and the sky is on fire. We threw ourselves against the inevitable, but to no avail. Let it be said that we faced the great terror and did not look away. That we fought for the right to be, the right to exist, and when that time came and the end came, we were not afraid. So to those one day who receive the signal, we, the dead, send our regards. As we see, this is a planet that is currently being consumed by Galactus himself, all for the purposes of taking the planet's energies, consuming it, sating his hunger temporarily to continue on this journey until the end of time, essentially, until the rebirth of the next cosmos, in which the death, destruction, and utter evisceration of the lives, civilizations, planets, it just doesn't faze Galactus. This is just an average day over the eons he has been doing this, though this is seemingly the first time in his existence that he has had to face the Ghost Rider, the spirit or avatar of vengeance. Now at first when Ghost Rider goes to confront him, Galactus pays him no mind, completely dismissing him, calling him just another troubling little insect. And Johnny Blaze is usually a little bit of a hothead, quite literally in this sense, but he has never been one to take direct disrespect and just be fine with it. So instead here he says, fine then, okay, we'll do this on your terms, Galactus, using his great power, morphing himself, enlarging himself until he becomes full-sized. Yes, his form and size now on par with Galactus, towering over planets and other cosmic bodies. And keep in mind, this is just base Ghost Rider, like he doesn't have any special type of power upgrades or amps in this case. This is just him, though a little bit more unrestricted in how he's using his powers because he's fighting against, well, Galactus, the world devourer and cosmic being. So when they finally come to blows, each using their power set, Galactus using his power cosmic and the Ghost Rider using his hellfire, their beams of energy clash, and surprisingly, it is Galactus who is being sent back. Now, this could just be a situation of Galactus underestimating his opponent because at this point he could really just care less. There's been many people who have tried to challenge him and has got destroyed just as easily. Yet here now, with him now realizing that this is a little bit of a mistake, underestimating him, Johnny Blaze, this super-sized Ghost Rider, now has his full attention. And so the battle rages on, them having a little bit of a scuffle, a fist fight, which would be crazy if someone's watching us through a telescope or any other type of stellar device. Like imagine seeing these two ginormous titans just having a fist fight and little brawl in the middle of space. Though eventually the Ghost Rider is able to get Galactus pinned, as he goes on to say, let the guilt over your crimes condemn you. Now face the lethal fires of the Penance Stare. Yes, he's finally doing what he came all across the universe to do. Use the Penance Stare on Galactus and ideally end him here once and for all. Yet as it happens, as the Penance Stare is penetrating his soul or whatever is left of it, literally nothing happens. Galactus going on to even turn his back to Ghost Rider, just walking off, just getting bored of the situation, seeing there's nothing more for him to do here, and just being on his way. Though while this does happen here, and we can clearly see on panel it just didn't affect him, realistically it should have, because even in a previous story, you know, during the first years of Galactus being introduced and created within Marvel, Volume 1 of Fantastic Four, issue 243, we see Doctor Strange do something very similar to Ghost Rider's Penance Stare, using the same supernatural abilities and his magic to reach into the deepest corners of his mind to confront Galactus with the ghost or guilt of all of those he has slain and consumed. And then at least it was pretty successful. Galactus was staggered, even going on to scream, as all of that just comes rushing back to him. Though here, obviously, maybe it's due to power creep, or maybe the abilities just work slightly different, but we can see it doesn't have that much of an effect here. Of course, Ghost Rider is woefully just confused about this entire situation until another person intervenes, the Watcher. As even he goes on to say that the Penance Stare has no effect on Galactus because the Big G doesn't know guilt, remorse, or sorrow for any of his actions. And why would he? Like, sure, the action in and of itself is technically wrong, as in he's destroying a bunch of people, but at the same time, if you think about it like this, a gazelle being hunted and killed and eaten by a lion would see that same lion as a villain, as a predator that shouldn't be be doing this and should be taken out. Yet, from the lion's perspective, he's just doing his job, finding food to eat just to live another day and sustain himself, which is the exact same thing from Galactus's perspective. He is the lion. Sure, the other planets and habitants of the universe may be the gazelle, but Galactus is only doing this because that is his task. He's just trying to sustain himself and live another day. Essentially, he's just following his nature, though the Ghost Rider here has heard there's a plethora of other times before, from the Punisher to Bullseye to even Thanos, continuing on saying he just simply won't accept this truth. A price must be paid. And if seemingly the Penance Stare itself is not sufficient, that he vows to take this on himself. Even if it may take 1,000 years, he will be remained here locked in combat with Galactus until one of them are fully destroyed. He has no other choice. Though the Watcher interjects, saying you believe you have no choice because you do not know the rest of it, the rest of Galactus' story. As the Watcher goes on to explain that there has been many universes before this current one, which I believe it's currently the 8th iteration of this universe. As in after time the universe would die and then another big bang or something equal to that would occur and the new one is born. Though it is known from the previous universe, the 7th version of it, Galactus was once a sentient, normal, mortal being known as Galen, the lone survivor from the universe. He survived and was revived inside of this universe with a hunger that could only be appeased by consuming entire worlds. Now, all of that is already known and nothing necessarily new or interesting, but the interesting part is what happened to all of the prior iterations of the universe and just why. What is the meaning of everything seemingly dying, restarting in this entire cycle? As he continues on saying, every prior universe from the beginning of time eventually came to an end, and in the final reckoning, only a few were chosen to survive, and each essentially became the Galactus of their universe. Colossal cosmic beings. They became known as the Great Destroyers, being able to destroy and consume stars, planets, heck, even entire galaxies. Until in their universe, trillions upon trillions of years later, the universe went into the heat death or whatever happened to it, and only the Destroyer, the Galactus being of that universe, remained. Of course, for them to either die out or be reiterated into the next version of it. But even after just hearing this part, Ghost Rider is rightfully confused, saying, wait, you're saying from the very beginning to the very end, all of this is essentially just without meaning. That universe after universe, creation after creation, that every sentient being across the universe essentially has no greater purpose than to just feed the beast that will one day devour everything. It just doesn't really make sense. So the Watcher tries to put it into perspective, saying, does it make sense to a farmer to plant a field of wheat and to not harvest it? Just to plant it, let it grow and leave it there to rot beneath the sun. All things die and all worlds come to an end. So even without Galactus or a being similar to him, eventually the same people, the same worlds, the same universes would die regardless. But when Galactus consumes a planet and inadvertently kills those people and consumes them too, something more than just their death happens. Because he harvests and consumes not just the planet and the lives of those people, but also their art, their music, their stories, all the things that gave them their individual purpose and beauty. And most importantly, the will within those sentient creatures to fight until their last breath, for the right to live and exist. This determination, this will to survive, becomes almost an external force within Galactus. A energy source and almost mind of his own, if you will, powerful enough to even bend creation towards a desire for new life. Because finally, after eons and trillions of years later, when the universe experiences its eventual and inevitable death and destruction, only certain things will be left behind, one of them being the Great Destroyer, as it's called here, or Galactus, to be reborn and remade into the new universe. But like I said, the energy from millions of different civilizations over the years all combines within him and explodes as the new universe creates. The cycle of creation and destruction, life and death, art, beauty, music, memories, purpose begins anew, shaped by everything that came previously. And as a result, each new universe, each new cycle is stronger and better than before. One step closer to being absolute perfection. Which makes sense at face value, you know. It's just an endless cycle of creation and destruction. Eventually the universe dies, a new one is created using the energy from all the previously consumed people, planets, places, etc. But to what end? What is this giant cosmic game leading to? The Watcher going on to finally reveal the end goal of, I guess, the Marvel Universe, as he goes on to say, someday, an untold number of universes later from now, perfection will finally be achieved, honoring the memories and lives of all who have lived and died along the way. Meaning everything, the struggles, all of the pain, the joy, the loss, the dreams, the art, the beauty, everything will have been worth it, and it will be beautiful. Eventually creating a utopia of a universe, created and stacked from everything good and bad from the other universes to build upon to make better. So at least in the grand scheme of things, Galactus is just a very necessary part of a evolving and natural universe. Though even still, hearing all of this, Johnny Blaze, the Ghost Rider, simply says he doesn't care. Galactus just doesn't get a free pass of destruction because of something that might happen in trillions of years from now. He deserves to pay for his crimes and sins here and now. Though, even if this were to be the case, future universes in the structure of the cosmos going forward may not be born as a result. But even still, the Ghost Rider just says, that's not his problem. He doesn't care what happens in trillions of years from now. All he cares about is the here and now. Even if that means being locked in eternal combat with Galactus for millions of years to come until one of them falls. Which is kind of an understandable perspective on the matter. Like sure, the actual action may be super cruel, devastating lives, entire civilizations and planets gone, wiped from the face of history, even if it is part of a larger scale and more grander plan. Though in the end, the Ghost Rider, no matter how powerful he may be, is really just a very small part in playing of the universe and other cosmic dwellings. As even the Watcher says, what you say and your motives simply do not matter in the larger scale of the universe. As just then suddenly everything starts to shift and change as he is teleported back to New York. Now it's not made explicitly clear if this is the Watcher's doing or if it may even be some sort of higher power than him. Maybe the Living Tribunal stepped in and stopped the Ghost Rider from doing anything and letting Galactus continue on his natural duty. Even as this happened, Johnny Blaze just thinks over this, just a situation that Galactus and other cosmic forces play in the universe at large. Eventually meeting up with Ben Grimm, who is at a restaurant with his girl, he just goes to come to the conclusion that as long as there is beauty, joy, good in the world, that's enough reason to keep going, to keep living, to keep striving towards, even if in the same fashion there is cruelty, death, and destruction. But yeah, if you ever wondered for whatever reason, how would a battle between the Ghost Rider and the cosmic Galactus would go, well, we got our answer here. Though as always, this was AJ here at The Hero Informer, and thank you for watching.